1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All right.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Star Wars Reactions. We got an awesome show planned for us today, and this is a special show. We are discussing the season finale of The Bad Batch. That's right. Both episodes of the season finale, Return to Kamino and Kamino Lost, is what we'll be discussing. And we are going to have just an awesome time. So let's get things going. My name is Aaron Harris, and joining me is... I have so many things I could say. I'm blanking on all of them. We'll just say he's the 3PO for my R2, David Motters. David, brother, how's it going?
Good. Ready to react as always. And once again, just really thankful to be recording with you again. Just glad everyone's healthy. And we've got, like you said, a real special show tonight, a real bookend to our season premiere coverage of The Bad Batch. So really excited to get this show out to our listeners.
Absolutely. It is going to be an awesome review. We got a surprise guest for you. Like David said, that's going to bookend it. But first, we just wanted to let you know, even though The Bad Batch is over, there is still plenty of Star Wars coming. Some of it you may like, some of it you may not like, some of it will be serious, some of it will just be fun. But either way, it's Star Wars, and enjoy it if you like it. So the next up on the Star Wars roster of shows is actually coming out the day we release this show, August 25th, is the Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian Season 2, where they are looking at the finale and bringing Luke Skywalker back for that finale. Spoiler if you hadn't seen it. But I am looking forward to seeing that and hearing all the behind-the-scenes stories of recording that incredible finale. That's going to be great to watch, and we'll be doing a show to review that probably next week. So really looking forward to that. After that, we have Star Wars Visions coming out September 22nd. That is the series of anime shows that have been done by various anime studios in Japan, and those will be coming out telling stories. Some of them, I've never been a big anime fan, but some of them have looked interesting, so I'll definitely give them a watch. After that, October 1st, we have the Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. Basically their Halloween special is essentially what it is. So that will be coming out October 1st. Then after that, we just kind of have to hold our breath until the Book of Boba Fett in December. So plenty of Star Wars coming, David. Anything you're looking forward to in particular?
Well, I really enjoyed the Lego Holiday Special last fall. The one that was Christmas based. I really enjoyed it. Very fun. My kids enjoyed it, and I did watch it with a number of my son and daughter's friends' parents, and so we all watched it together, and the adults were laughing too. So I'm really looking forward to the Terrifying Tales coming out October 1st, that Lego Halloween special. That'll be a lot of fun. I'm the same as you when it comes to anime. Some of it appealed to me in the teaser trailer that they put out at StarWars.com. Some of it is not as interesting to me, but I'm with you. I'm going to give it a shot. I'll watch it and see what it looks like, and maybe I'll be bowled over. And then I guess, and then of course, on the 25th. Really looking forward to how they really brought, I guess what would we say, post Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker back to life, and so I will definitely be watching that multiple times. And like you said, I already have a lot of ideas of what I want to discuss related to that, even though I haven't seen it yet. So I'm really pumped for that.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see, and we got a lot of things coming. I'm looking. I'm looking forward to the Mandalorian tomorrow, the behind the scenes. Then I'm really holding my breath for Book of Boba Fett. That's the one I'm probably most excited about out of these. They're all going to be good. They're all going to be interesting. But Book of Boba Fett, man, that the way they ended season 2 with that of the Mandalorian with that teaser right there at the end. Oh man, incredible. So I can't wait to see that. So more Star Wars coming. Be excited, enjoy it, and be thankful that we're getting more Star Wars. There's been no better time to be a Star Wars fan than right now. And I'll keep saying that because it's the truth. We've never had so much content ever. So,
we haven't.
So it's an amazing time. So let's enjoy it. All right. So with that pretty much that was all I really wanted to bring up in our news segment today, because I wanted to let you know what was coming up. So we'll leave it at that. So let's go ahead and jump into our review of the Bad Batch season finale. All right, tonight we are looking at the series finale of Star Wars The Bad Batch. As we mentioned, we were looking at Return to Kamino and Kamino Lost, which is considered part 1 and part 2 of the finale. Of course, this week, we felt like it was just only right to bring in a guest to help us review these 2 episodes, and not just any guest. This is a guest who joined us for our May 4th episode to review the premiere of The Bad Batch, an episode called Aftermath. This man is no stranger to Star Wars. He is a legend when it comes to books. He has written many Star Wars books, including the novelization of Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Star Wars Rebels, Servants of the Empire series, the Clone Wars Character Encyclopedia, Join the Battle, and he's got a new book coming out in October, Battles That Changed the Galaxy. We're joined by the one and only Jason Fry. Jason, welcome back to Star Wars Reactions.
Hey, thank you, David. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much for having me back. We had a lot of fun the first time. It's really exciting to be your bookend for the finale of season 1 of Bad Batch.
Oh, excellent! Yes, it was when Jason or David came up with this. Came up with having you bookend with us, and I loved it. And I'm glad our schedules meshed to where we can actually have you on and talk about these 2 fantastic episodes.
Yeah, no, a lot of fun. The whole season was a lot of fun, but particularly this ending. So,
excellent. Yeah. Yes, definitely. So let's go ahead and jump into the episode here. We're going to start with part 1, which is Return to Kamino. This particular episode released August 6th of 2021, written by Matt Michnovitz and directed by Nathaniel Villanueva. Ooh, getting tongue-tied already. This episode begins with Crosshair taking Hunter, who was captured on Dara, to Kamino. He activates Hunter's comlink to bring in the rest of the Bad Batch to try to rescue him. And of course, they receive the message and make the trip to Kamino. Omega helps the Bad Batch sneak into Tipoca City there on Kamino, but through a hidden landing platform and tube system that lead directly to Nala Se's hidden laboratory. There they find out not only was that where Omega was created, but it's where the Bad Batch had their genetic mutations enhanced, making them the special Clone Force 99. AZ joins the party there and helps them, advises them of what's going on with the clones and, of course, the TK troopers and the evacuation of the city. And from there, they sneak off to the clone arena, the training arena, where to rescue Hunter, but it ends up being a trap. And they are surrounded by TK troopers and Crosshair. And of course, Crosshair is having a nice heart-to-heart with Hunter and advises him that Clone Force 99 didn't give him a chance. Crosshair tells his troopers to stand down. When they refuse, he does his famous ricochet shot off the mirrors and takes them all out. A move we have not seen since actually the Clone Wars, which that was actually one of my favorite scenes from the Clone Wars. Of course, by this point, a signal had been sent to Omega letting him know they were in trouble, where Omega and AZ activated the training droids to flood the arena. Of course, Clone Force 99, complete with Crosshair, battle their way through the droids to make their escape. Unfortunately, things have progressed a little too late for them, where Tarkin orders Rampart to destroy Tipoca City. And, of course, then they have to make their great escape, all while carrying Crosshair, because Hunter had to stun him because he tried to pull his gun on him. And it ends, of course, with them trapped in Tipoca City while it's going down. Let's go ahead and hit on our initial thoughts for the episode. Jason, you're our guest. What were your initial thoughts when you first saw Return to Kamino?
To be kind of explicit about being a bookend, what really struck me in this episode was the same thing that struck me back in the first episode, was just the amazing work D. Bradley Baker is doing, playing absolutely everybody, particularly the interplay with Crosshair and the others. I mean, it's Crosshair has gone from kind of being the kind of the Robert Mitchum Knight of the Hunter character, who's sort of implacable, but you don't really delve into that much. And here we get into his head, and Baker does such a great job on that, as well as, the animators, just, the angles of his face, the way he stands. I found myself really enjoying that and that look into his character. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And also just little things like, noticing like how good water effects have gotten, and the lighting, and it's not everything about what makes a show work, but when I think back to episode 1 of Clone Wars and how far the members of, in some cases, this same team for Dave Filoni have brought what can be done here, it's just kind of amazing to think about.
Very good. It truly is amazing to see how far it's progressed. Star Wars animation has progressed since that first season of Clone Wars. It's mind-boggling, and the changes and advancements that were made. David, what were your first thoughts when you saw Return to Kamino?
Yeah, this episode had me on the edge of my seat from the start. I was worried for Hunter. And then I'm worried about the Bad Batch and Omega as they sneak into Tipoca City. It was very eerie. And, at this point, when this episode aired, I think, Aaron, you and I have talked about this, that they hadn't made the announcement, I believe, of season 2. It was just before the next episode we're going to cover here. So I'm legitimately worried for Hunter. I'm worried about Omega, the whole Bad Batch. And, I watched it several more times, but after my second viewing, I was like, why did those 3 Venator class Star Destroyers allow them to get by? And then I started thinking about Luke Skywalker and The Empire Strikes Back and how he was allowed to land in Cloud City. Vader orchestrated Luke's journey to him. And I kind of felt like Crosshair was doing the same thing, and how they're like, yeah, let that Marauder, let that ship land, let Crosshair try to reel them all in. And so that was pretty cool. It's interesting in this one, the twist that Crosshair had his chip removed is very interesting. I'm really not sure. Did he let Rampart or Tarkin know about that little tidbit? That's interesting. I liked AZ in this episode. He provides exposition, like telling the listeners and the viewers like what's going on, but it wasn't overwhelming, And I said this in our last episode when we covered War Mantle. I just really love the Saturday morning serial ending with the cliffhanger, and we just see the Tipoca City getting blown up and the Bad Batch retreating, and then boom, cut to credits. So, and I, like Jason said, and gosh, the animation with water, with light, with just everything they've done. It's you and I talked about it, Aaron. When it came to War Mantle, that it was August 15th, 2008. Just 13 years ago right now, Clone Wars, the movie, came out at theaters. And you and I were talking, and Jason, I'm sure you remember this, how Obi-Wan and, has this beard, and so does Dooku, that just looks, just immovable. It just looks like wooden objects. And so, considering what you said, Jason, it is staggering how good everything looks and how realistic. And so, yeah, praise to the team for all of that. And so those are just a few of my initial thoughts on this particular part of the season finale.
Excellent. I have a very unique perspective of this episode, mainly because my initial reactions actually came from my second viewing, because my first viewing was in a fevered COVID rampage. This episode, I really, when I sat down and actually watched it a second time, because I really don't remember much from my first viewing. My second viewing, when I sat down and watched it, I was blown away. This was exciting. It was action packed. There was the back and forth with Hunter and Crosshair is what it is the banter I'd been expecting and waiting for all season. I've wanted to see. I've been hoping and wanting to see Crosshair's redemption all season, and this episode actually began to make me see the possibility of that. And unfortunately, we know that doesn't necessarily all work out in the second episode, but we'll get to that later. I thought it was great to get some background on Nalase's secret lab. We find out where the Bad Batch had their skills enhanced, their genetic mutations enhanced, and we also find out that's where Omega is, and we find out Omega's older than they are, which is kind of surprising there as well. I loved the battle inside the training arena again. We opened the series up with that, and the season up with that, and we closed the season up with it. I thought that was again a nice bookend. Since we've mentioned bookend several times in the opening here, I thought that was a great bookend as well. This was, to me, just a fantastic episode. So, all right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and hit on some of our talking points here. Probably the biggest reveal was Crosshair revealing he didn't have his chip anymore. And of course, you could see the scarring on the side of his head. Of course, the question that remains is that scarring from actually having the chip removed, or was it scarring from that explosion back in the episode when the guys had their chips removed, when he ambushed them on the salvage planet? But that reveal kind of caught me off guard. David, when it comes to Crosshair not having his chip and his reveal there, what were your thoughts when that reveal was made, and how does that affect your actual view of Crosshair and his actions, the actions he's taking?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a twist, and I'm looking at him, and the first thing I wonder is he telling the truth or not? And, one of the questions I have is when and how, and did he do it without Rampart knowing? Because, Jason saw this, you and I saw this. Tarkin and Rampart were amping that thing up in the first few episodes of the season. And it's interesting. I was trying to do this before I got on with both of you guys. I just didn't have enough time tonight. I was doing stuff with kids as well, just kind of getting them all set. But I was trying to read the article that Dan Brooks did for StarWars.com. It came out on Monday, the 16th. And he sits down and talks with Jennifer Corbett, the head writer, executive producer, and he talks to Brad Rao, who's an executive producer on it. And Dan Brooks does ask him, is that chip out? And they both said, yes, it is. And so when you think about it, and we can talk about it a little bit more, and when Omega sits down with Crosshair when they're trying to escape Kamino in the next part of this. But here's the thing that I think about, again, from a psychological perspective, right? Back in May, Jason has these beautiful, beautiful insights from a writer's perspective. And I always try to, look at things from a psychological perspective. And you have to ask, well, why are you doing this, Crosshair? What, you don't have the excuse of the chip. You don't have that excuse. And so one of the things I thought about was very Freudian, right? Sigmund Freud. And some of the things that I've loved about his approach, his theory was his defense mechanisms. And I've talked about this before with Aaron on previous episodes, but one of the most famous of the defense mechanisms that Freud talked about was if you can't beat them, join them, right? It's called identification with the aggressor, right? So the way that you hear Crosshair talking, and after he reveals about this chip, I'm like, well, he's identifying with the aggressor. He sees them taking over, and he's like, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them. And so that is what I thought about when he said his chip was out, and he's continuing to act that way. Like I said, immediately thought about identification with aggressor, plus not wanting to admit he was, wrong to follow these guys the whole way. So just some thoughts there.
Very good. Very good. Of course, with Crosshair, of course, having his chip removed, he still has that favor toward the Empire that you mentioned, and he seems to really want his family back with Clone Force 99, but he's wanting them to. He's like he wants the best of both worlds. He wants his family back, but he wants his family back to serve the Empire. Jason, what were your thoughts on Crosshair in this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stick with the writing perspective I brought the first time. I thought it was a very smart twist, and it really, I mean, you can see the care that went into it, because you may remember after the first episodes of the show, that was a criticism overall from a lot of fans who basically said, look, we know what's wrong. It's the chips. That'll be like, how do they get Crosshair's chip out? That'll be the big thing, and then everybody's happy, etc. Which was a perfectly valid criticism going back to Clone Wars and the prequel trilogy about the clones and agency in storytelling terms, etc. So I thought it was really smart to go subvert that. Like, what if it turns out Crosshair did it on his own and it didn't make any difference? That's who he is. I thought that was really smart, and not only restores Crosshair's agency, but really surprises the audience and makes them rethink things. And then, one of the simplest but most effective tricks a writer has is working backward. It's the great working backward gag is from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like they have to burst through the wall and there's a million snakes, etc. And Indy has this great line, why snakes? Why did it have to be snakes? And the way they did that is they had that scene and then work backwards. So there's snakes earlier, and Indy hates snakes. Back to the plane, etc. And then it all comes together, and the audience is like, "Oh, that was so great!" When in fact you started with, the climactic scene and then set it up. It's like telling a joke in reverse. But the minute Crosshair did that, I was like, "Oh, the explosion and the damage to his face, that was super smart. That was working backwards." So the audience can't see either the scar or the chip, and also their first the first immediate reaction of people trying to outguess the show is gone because you can't look for it. You can't go, hey, wait a minute. No, I mean, I would have seen the scar just like we did on Rex, etc. So yeah, from a writer's point of view, I admire that on all sorts of levels, from the sublime to the arguably ridiculous.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Now, the other major part of this episode that we get to see is the return to Kamino and the aftermath of what's going on with the Empire takeover. We see Hunter walking through the facility and realizing, there's no clones here. The Kaminoans are gone. They're decommissioning this place, aren't they? I mean, he's putting pieces together, just, being held prisoner, walking down the hall. And we get to see everything going on. It started in the last episode with everybody being evacuated in War Mantle. We get to see more of the place in this. And then AZ was expanded on it. They evacuated key medical personnel. They evacuated the clones. They were all reassigned somewhere else. And then they were decommissioning droids. And if the droids resisted, they were being destroyed. So we see this happening, and it all comes to a giant climax at the end when Tarkin orders Rampart to fire on the city and destroy it. And we begin to see that happening in the episode. It's crazy to think that we're going to see this entire city that we've, lived on through the Clone Wars, and we had so much. We've seen them fight to defend so much that city in the Clone Wars, and then of course got our first viewing in episode 2. The whole strategy of destroying Tipoca City there on Kamino, from your perspective, Jason, as an author, knowing the history of the city, how did you feel about that in the path that they're taking in closing out the story with the Kaminoans?
It's really interesting you would ask me that, because that's actually the part of the episode I thought did not work particularly well. Okay. I mean, yeah, you see the city being destroyed and the music is very sad, etc. But I think there's a little bit fan servicey for one thing. I mean, fans who are really, really into Star Wars are like, oh my God, they're blowing up Tipoca City. I think people who are not as devoted to the lore are not. But the real thing, I mean, it's not like it's Gondor. The thing that, or Minas Tirith, I should say, to be properly geeky. The thing I thought was really missing there was, I mean, back in the original Clone Wars with the ARC Troopers episode, you had the clones talking about defending their home and showing, real fervor for Kamino and Tipoca City that we hadn't seen otherwise. And that was cool. But these guys, we've never been shown that they feel that way. They don't seem particularly connected to this place. If anything, they promised Omega they wouldn't ever bring her back, etc. I mean, the one who might have had that connection is maybe Echo, but we don't really get it from him. So, without the characters really bringing that feeling to you, it comes off as very fan servicey, and I wasn't particularly moved by it. I was like, yeah, the place from episode 2 is getting blown up. Okay, that's fine. I'd really rather go back to the characters. I'm much more interested in them and their reactions to each other.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Very, very interesting. David, how
It's a
about
great
you?
show, and
Oh, yeah.
it's a great show and great storytellers. They can take a criticism here and there.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. No, we always find there's always something, that's one thing I love about Star Wars. Everything has its place, everything. And as I loved going, I loved Resistance, but there were still a couple episodes of Resistance. I was like, seriously, guys, come on. Y'all can do better than this. So no, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I love it. David, how about you?
Yeah, both of you got me thinking about what George Lucas tried to do starting in 1999, 2002, and 2005, which is telling a story that all of us know where it ends, but how do you do that? How do you show it and keep it interesting? And I was just thinking about it as Jason was mentioning, seeing the destruction of the city, and it's like, well, I guess we didn't know as Star Wars fans, do they just shut it down? They take everybody off, there's no one in Tipoca City and so on and so forth, but they don't destroy the facilities if they want to come back and use them later. But they made a decision to, like I said, had the 3 Star Destroyers up there, just take it apart. But like, again, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, I know that this is going to happen. I know this is shut down in one way or another. But again, why should I care? And when Jason said what he said, I was like, dang, that is so true. Like, going back to those episodes in the Clone Wars, we see those ARC troopers and they're battling for their home and so on and so forth. But yeah, with the Bad Batch, we don't get that. Even in the 4 episodes of season 7 last year, and exactly what Jason said. Hunter even apologizes for bringing her back there, right? So you're like, well, why would you care then? Just get out of there, get on the Marauder and fly away. So I hear that loud and clear. And in fact, you'll hear it in kind of my final thoughts after we cover the next episode. I liked each of these episodes. I have a lower grade each time. So I see this as a 3-part finale: War Mantle, this one, Return to Kamino, and Kamino Lost, but I have a lower grade for each one. So yeah, I'm on the same vein as you guys. Not as emotional as I thought I maybe would be, but again, tough to make it happen when I already know it's going to happen.
Understand. This is one of those episodes that is to me, I enjoyed it. This was the destruction of Kamino, and until you actually brought it up, Jason, it never really crossed my mind about the Bad Batch not having and expressing that connection to Tipoca City. And you're right, there was never that expressed connection to it like we saw in Clone Wars in the ARC Trooper episode. Where we actually met, 99. So, and it was a very emotional very emotional episode too. And that's lacked, for any sense of a better term, in this episode. And in the next one, we have the destruction of the city, but we don't have that emotional connection. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something that was there in the back of my mind. I never actually put 2 and 2 together till you mentioned it. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate that.
Oh, sure. Glad to be of help. It happens now.
Oh, bravo. All right. So we do have, we mentioned it in the synopsis of the episode, where we find out they enter Nala Se's secret laboratory from her own secret landing pad. This is a cloner who has a lot of secrets, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
So we find out, and this is where we find out some more background on Omega and Clone Force 99, which was very interesting. We find out Omega's older than Clone Force 99, even though she's a kid. She's older than they are, so obviously her growth wasn't sped up like the regs were. We also find out that she was there when their modifications were made, which honestly, that really kind of blew my mind in a matter of speaking. What were your thoughts when those reveals were made, David?
Yeah, I think I've always had some confusion about Sifo Dyas, Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, Jango Fett talking to Obi-Wan on Tipoca City about, who started this whole thing, and in terms of commissioning the clones and so on. Again, I know some Clone Wars episodes have looked to explain it, and there's always that whole thing of, as Star Wars fans, and I guess of any maybe genre, do you want everything explained? On the one hand, it feels like as Star Wars fans, we do, and I feel that way at times, and I want to put all the pieces together and have everything line up. But sometimes I do like that mystery. When I heard this part, I don't know about you, Aaron or Jason, I was a little confused because when she said, I was there, I'm like, is she one? Is she two? Of course, like we know from an earlier episode, Tech is the one who says that it's just her and Boba Fett who share, the pure genetics and are not aging at twice the speed. But I'm like, is she one? Is she 2 years old? When she sees Nala say, in the lab doing those things, not clear to me. But then I say to myself, well, does it matter? Do I have to know all of it per se? And I don't. And so I just thought it was kind of neat that she said, I was there. And I think in that case, kind of provides a closeness that we see at the very end of the next episode where, she talks about all of them being brothers, or, they're her brothers and they're brothers to each other. So I thought it was interesting, titrating out a little bit more about what happened there, but I thought it was maybe just enough. I guess I don't have to know every little detail, but I guess I have to admit I still want to know a little bit more.
Very good, very good. I think we all want to know a little bit more, don't we? Just one of those things.
Yeah.
Jason, how about you? When these reveals were made, because these are major character reveals for these characters. What were your thoughts on these reveals?
It brings up something that's always been kind of a flashpoint for me with Star Wars and with lore, and it's I hope an interesting vehicle for exploring it. Like Star Wars specializes in connections and lore and all that good stuff. But, for me, when a connection is introduced, it can have one of two effects. One is, it makes the galaxy seem bigger or deeper. That's the good connection. But there are also connections that makes the galaxy feel a lot smaller and shallower to me. And so when we get one of these, I kind of think about my reaction to it and think, all right, which is it? And, I think whether it's the overall saga or certainly just even this one episode of Bad Batch, I mean, we got a bunch of things that were frankly some from column A and some from column B. I liked the Omega and Bad Batch kind of origin questions, etc. Because for me, that goes in the deeper, bigger camp. And it goes both ways, both forward and backward in time. What are the links between Omega and the Bad Batch and Nala Se? What was the purpose of creating these very different clones? And then, looking ahead to season 2, if Nala Se is where we think she is, with the Empire having big plans for her, how does that come together? So for me, that's all very interesting, both in thinking about the past and in the future. And, things like, as you said, I liked that, the kind of first of 3 finale episodes really for War Mantle. Like, I loved seeing the clones giving way to the stormtroopers, and loved the little detail that the stormtroopers wear sort of earlier kind of slightly McQuarrie style armor. Like for me, that counts as a deeper galaxy. I love that. Where I thought, things don't work as well was in a lot of episodes this season, we had, either characters we've seen before, which I wasn't really sure why they were back, or connections that I wasn't really sure we needed. I love Rex. I love Gregor. I love AZ. I love Hera. I love Chopper. I didn't really need to see them again because I like, these new characters and the new connections being made just as well. I didn't feel like we needed to lean on these characters we already know. To me, things like that make everything feel smaller, shallower. And so, whenever we get a connection like that, that's kind of the calculus that goes through my head. Like, do I feel like the galaxy just got a lot bigger and a lot more interesting? Or do I feel like it just became, kind of a little game of Star Wars Clue? We've got like these 7 people in these 6 rooms doing X number of things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well said. Well said. I mean, that's actually something we talked about earlier in the season too, because one of my concerns was with Rex coming in, and of course Hera and Chopper, and seeing all these major characters starting to filter in. Are they taking away from the overall story that we could be seeing with these characters? We got some great stories with them, absolutely, but at what cost? And I really, even though I'm a massive Chopper fan and I loved seeing my guy roll onto the screen again, I think there was definitely some opportunities that we could have seen more new characters and more of Clone Force 99 getting involved in other ways. But well said. Well said. All right. So what we're going to do real quick is we are going to take a brief break. And when we come back, we will go into Kamino Lost, part 2 of the finale. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here with special guest Jason Fry, bookending our coverage of season 1 of The Bad Batch, as we sit down to look at Kamino Lost, part 2 of the finale. This aired a week later on August 13th, 2021, written by Jennifer Corbett and directed by Saul Ruiz. Of course, this episode picks up right where the other episode, Return to Kamino, ended, with the Venator class starships commanded by Admiral Rampart coming in over the city and opening fire on Tipoca City, and destroying it and sinking it into the sea, all while Clone Force 99 and AZ try to escape the destruction. Fortunately, their path is blocked multiple times. Of course, they end up there's a separation where Crosshair, AZ, and Omega get separated by a blast door that's sealed because of flooding. Omega and AZ end up saving Crosshair, believe it or not, and end up making the escape. And of course, they end up in a tunnel heading to the secret lab, trying to work their way back to Marauder. A fantastic new alien creature comes swimming in and tries to eat them in the tunnel, but they end up escaping thanks to AZ. We see them arrive in the lab only to discover that the tube is destroyed and they can't get to the Marauder. So they have to find another plan, and they end up using some medical cylinders to seal themselves in and float up to the shore where they can paddle over. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned, as Omega's tube gets trapped and AZ sacrifices himself to save her. Then Omega tries to rescue him as he's sinking away with no power, and they are rescued by none other than Crosshair. Crosshair fires a tow cable essentially and pulls them back up to the surface, where they paddle their way over to the landing pad, and the decision is made by Crosshair, surprisingly, to stay and wait for the Empire to pick him up as everybody else leaves on the Marauder. And that actually is the ending of season 1 of the Bad Batch. So let's jump into initial thoughts there. Jason, what were your initial thoughts when you first watched Kamino Lost?
Well, it'd be pretty funny if we do like 4 seasons of Bad Batch and never see Crosshair again. And then he's like in rags with really long hair just sitting on the platform because he didn't have a...
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. It's terrible. No, but actually...
Like a volleyball with a painted face on it.
Yeah, exactly. but actually, it's a little detail about Star Wars that I love, that, you know, you don't have to show him with a radio. You're like, oh, come on, there's a radio. It's fine. But no, it was, I mean, just, I really love the style of this episode, from the, you know, the shots of Omega ascending to, you know, it's such a little thing, but I just loved it. Like, there's this wonderful shot of them paddling through the, you know, the flames and the wreckage at night to get to the platform. And like the most logical thing in the world would be to, when they're on the platform, the shot is the same, like looking at the wreckage, thinking about it. Now, what do they do? And instead they cut to like this brilliant, bright, beautiful sunny day. And they're all, you know, they all climb up to the ship in that kind of setting. And, you know, that was just I loved that because it was just such a smarter choice. It shows you it's very different. Like it, you know, you've gone to a sunshiny day, supposedly things are better, but, you know, the conflicts between these characters and the seriousness of their situation is unchanged. And I thought that was both really smart and a sort of subtle thing to do. It was not the obvious. So I really admired that.
Bravo. David, what were your initial thoughts when you watched Kamino Lost?
Yeah, like I mentioned to both of you, I'd really been thinking about, again, this 3-part finale in my mind's eye. And I mentioned it a few minutes ago that I think each one I liked a little bit less. At the very end of this one, I guess I enjoyed the cliffhangers at the end of War Mantle and Return to Kamino. But in this one, I felt like they played it safe. I guess I really thought someone was going to die. I thought it would be Crosshair. That was me. That was in my head. I thought they might do it that way. But it's not that I wanted anyone to die, but I kind of just thought it would have more of an emotional impact. I guess instead of having Crosshair go through that redemptive arc, kind of, you know, like Jason said, you know, you look and see what other podcasts are talking about and fans are on social media. People thought, I think in general, that he would go through that redemptive arc and perhaps, you know, make it by the end of the season. But they did change it up, and maybe the writers will have that play out in season 2. You know, overall, I'd say this: I enjoyed this season more than I thought I would, based on the 4 episodes we saw in season 7 of the Clone Wars last year. So really enjoyed it, but again, a little bit less than War Mantle and Return to Kamino.
Very good. Very good. You know, for me, this was an interesting episode. I did enjoy it. But this was, compared to Return to Kamino Lost was a little bit more character driven, in my opinion. It had a lot more interpersonal dialogue, a lot more, we're focused in a lot more on relationships and stuff. And just, to me, the banter between Hunter and Crosshair throughout this whole situation was perfect. It gave an interesting look in their relationship, and even bringing Omega into it as well made it interesting. I loved to me, it had a very, almost like a Poseidon adventure type escape to it, where they're trying to escape from under the sea before they sink. So I enjoyed that. and I love what you said, Jason. The contrast to they get to to the surface. It's nighttime. Everything's burning and smoke around. It was crazy, and then all of a sudden they're at the platform. The sun is up. The sky is blue. Birds are singing, and Tipoca City's burning in the distance, but you don't see the smoke and everything blowing over the platform. It's just beautiful blue skies, and the sea is calm. It was like, they can see clearly now, the rain is gone. That was my song for the episode, so no more singing for me. But
thank you for making the Poseidon Adventure connection. I was really surprised we weren't in an upside down room at some point, but that was still really cool.
Yeah, we very well could have been at some point, the way those things were going down. I was surprised we weren't either, but I loved the Poseidon Adventure, one of my favorites. But it was, and I had that feel with it in this episode, and I loved it. I thought it was a good episode. I honestly really wish my initial thoughts honestly ended with, when I finished this episode, I was like, you know what? This was a good episode. I think it would have been better if they would have just shown them both together and just told a full 1 hour continuous story instead of breaking it up week 1, week 2. I think that kind of made the episode a little more anticlimactic compared to Return to Kamino, but it was still a great episode. And for me, I look at them as I watch them together, and it's a fabulous story. So great things there. All right, let's get into some of our talking points here. Of course, we have them running through Tipoca City, trying to escape as things are burning and it's sinking and damage everywhere. And of course, by this point we knew there was going to be a season 2. And because I knew there was a season 2, I don't know, gentlemen, if y'all felt this way, but because I found out there was a season 2, I just, to me, the sense of danger just wasn't there, because I knew they were going to make it, because we're getting season 2. I almost wish they would have waited till after this to make that announcement. But how did you feel, and David, we'll start with you this time, about the sense of danger that everybody was in as this place was sinking?
Yeah, I guess I could look at it a couple ways. One, I do think about the Poseidon Adventure. I also started thinking about it from the standpoint of claustrophobia, fear of the dark. And I also thought, when that big sea monster is coming, fear of creatures, fear of the dark, fear of monsters, large animals, and stuff like that. So you've got all kinds of treatment options for me there for all these people who are traumatized by this whole run through. So there's very much all those psychological aspects to what's going on, kind of the whole masterclass in how to make people scared, right? But then I guess going back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, that, and what you said, Aaron, it was announced between Return to Kamino and Kamino Lost that there would be season 2. And so my sense of fear and nervousness for our heroes that I had in War Mantle and Return to Kamino dropped. So for me, I start thinking about some other things, and I have a question for both of you. I did not have a chance to look, but when they do those static shots of the little tubes, right, that the babies were in, they showed the mess hall, right?
Yeah.
Stuff. Do either of you remember? And I don't remember. I have to admit. Rampart had all of the essential personnel, certain clones taken off, etc. But were there still babies in the glass tubes that we saw there, or were those empty? I can't remember.
I thought they were empty.
I was going to say, I believe they were empty. I didn't see anything in the episode that led me to think that there were still clones in there.
Okay.
So, I'm pretty sure they were empty.
Well, and the reason why I was asking is, again, because I was looking for, from that angle, the emotional impact of that happening, because there's a part, if you guys both remember, there's a clone that comes up behind Rampart once the firing is done by the 3 Star Destroyers. And he's, again, like Jason said, the voice acting of D. Bradley Baker is just staggering. And he chokes his voice up as that clone who reports to Rampart that Tipoca City had been destroyed. And I thought, on the one hand, yes, it's upsetting to see that, but there's none of your clone brothers and sisters are down there. Brothers generally here. Obviously, we've got Omega, but I guess there's another one. Like, I guess you're attached. You want to defend it. It is your city. It's where you're from, but there's no one there, right? And that's why I was asking you about. I guess for me, I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on a rabbit trail. More emotional resonance if there were still clones there. And even, another generation, right? Omega talks about looking at Rex, and I know you're Generation 1. And he's, how do you know that? And she says, well, I can see it in the wrinkles on the side of your eyes. But that meant, provided more of an emotional impact as I was, looking at those scenes as they went through the cloning facilities in Tipoca City. But thank you for the clarification. So, yes, I felt less emotion then. For that, it would have provided more.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Oh, boy. Lost my notes for a moment. There we go. So, there, of course, we see that the destruction of Kamino. We know they escape. Did you? I mean, I'll go ahead and ask you this pretty much the same question, Jason. What were your feelings with the destruction? No, I mean, and the peril that our stars were in, knowing that by this point we knew there was a season 2 coming at that point.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I knew season 2 was coming or not. But I don't know. I mean, I figured that I'll make it through that. No, I was just enjoying the. I mean, there's a lot of fun interplay there. There always is, and I mean, particularly once again, I mean, between Crosshair and Omega, between when you finally get them back together. I mean, that's I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they're extending that story, and in retrospect, it makes some of the decisions in season 1 make more sense. I mean, we lost Crosshair for a while, and that seemed. Sometimes that struck me as a lost opportunity, but if we'd been in Crosshair's head all the time during this season, that would have lessened the effect of these 2 episodes. So, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's it's the Poseidon adventure with blaster rifles. Like, can't beat it.
No, you can't.
And sea monsters and everything. It's funny. I was looking. I vaguely remember there was a sea creature in a long ago comic book, and like our good friends at Wikipedia have equated the monster they fight in. Well, they don't really fight him. The monster in this one with this monster called a saber jowl from the old Republic comic. I have to admit, it doesn't look very much like a saber jowl to me, so I'm not sure where they're getting that. But it reminded me of a very funny Star Wars thing. Like, is it the same creature? I don't know, but it was pretty much a guarantee that somebody was going to make a Kamino sea monster at some point. That tends to be what happens in Star Wars. And when I was doing the Episode 8 novelization, I had an extra. I was doing some extended dialogue of Rose and Finn in the sewers as they're trying to escape the Canobite jail.
Okay.
And I knew the scene I wanted, and they were basically going to do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And I remember thinking to myself, there's got to be a Star Wars eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Like, it's been too long. Somebody's thought of it. And that's actually a very hard thing to Google, but I persisted, and sure enough, someone had done it in some novel somewhere, and it already existed. So I found that quite entertaining. But whether or not it was a new sea monster, it was pretty cool.
Well, for the record, it was a new sea monster.
Yeah.
According to the episode guide at StarWars.com, it was a brand new designed sea creature who they still have yet to name, according to the episode guide. So yeah, another new creature to chalk up for our creature count. So,
as you talk about mystery, though, I mean, once upon a time, there's a good chance I would have been the guy to name it in some book, but actually kind of like better that it doesn't have a name for a while, or maybe forever. Like, does it need a name? It's just the cool creature that bites the tube. That's enough.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And the thing is, we may never see it again.
Yeah.
So we may never get a name. Or it may wind up being named after Conan O'Brien again. So you never know. So, let's continue on here. And you brought it up, Omega and Crosshair, and the dialogue between them, which was unique throughout the episode. We have Crosshair pretty much questioning, we're taking orders from a kid now. and then of course Omega saves his life, and then Crosshair saves her life, and he's like, when she thanks him, he's like, yeah, let's just say we're even. And there's that, he's very harsh, very standoffish, almost like he's to me, it seems like one of those, he's playing that part where he doesn't want to let anybody close, which I found unique. And I still feel his redemption story is not over. He's going to get redeemed at some point. I feel it in my gut. It's got to happen. And I got a feeling Omega is going to play a part in that. Especially after the last line she spoke to him, they're your brothers still, and I'm your brother. You're my brother too. So it was they have a very unique relationship there. David, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts as a clinical psychologist there on what your thoughts were on Omega and Crosshair's relationship and conversations.
Oh, definitely. This ties into what Jason said a while back about, big universe, small universe. Is everything connected? Is it not? Relationships and wanting character development. And this is one of the ones where when they have that little break, I think between going to different tubes and stuff like that, when she says that, I thought it was an inhibitor chip and now it's not, one of the things I thought about was something that Aaron, you and I talked about when we covered the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. And I'm just going to do spoiler warning here. That's been out for a while, but I covered it in our episode of when we covered that trilogy. There's a part at the end where Eureka Quell is talking about Soren Keyes. And the way that the author, Alexander Freed, writes it, there's a part where, Keyes is already dead and she's looking at him. And, they had such good interactions talking about, do you leave the Empire, Operation Cinder, all this kind of stuff. But the line that I'll never forget that Eureka Quell says is, I wish you were a better man. And I start to choke up when I hear that because, I think about something we've talked about with Dan Z from Coffee with Kenobi, that with the Mandalorian series, here we have Din Djarin learning how to be a father, and we see a positive male figure in Star Wars, right? Because we were talking about Han Solo and Darth Vader and some of these things. So that was a beautiful thing to see. Here we see Hunter trying to do that, right? So in the previous episode that the three of us were just talking about, we see Crosshair in the training room, right, say, hey, stop trying to be something you're not. And I'm thinking to myself, I love that Hunter's trying. He's trying to be a good man. He's trying to be a good soldier, but also a good dad and a good brother, older brother, big brother, or all these guys, uncles to her. And here's Crosshair just lost in anger. And this is a big issue that I've dealt with for, 29, I'm going on 30 years of being a clinical psychologist. Anger and stubbornness, not wanting to admit we're wrong, and just destroying relationships. And I've seen men do this so much in my office, white, black, Hispanic, you name it, rich or poor. Men, this has been a massive issue. And, Jason hasn't heard this, but like in other episodes, Jason, one of the things I talk about when I've worked with thousands of teenage males, I tell them, you've got 3 issues. We got more than 3 issues, but here's your 3 big issues. And they're looking at me, and a lot of these guys don't have dads in their lives. And I tell them, look, number 1 is anger. Can you control anger? If you can do that, you won't destroy your job. You won't destroy your marriage. You won't destroy your kids if you decide to get married and have kids. Number 2 is sex. Can you handle that? And number 3 is when you work, and I would advise working, I'd try it out. Can you be at work, do your work there, but also be home and be a dad and be a father if you have them? And so when I see Crosshair here, I think about all that stuff I just mentioned. And I just see him, and I think about Eureka Quell, and I think she would say the same thing like Omega. Like, I wish you were a better man right now. And he's just stuck in his anger and stubbornness. But like both of you have said, Aaron and Jason, we'll see this play out, hopefully in season 2. And it's a storyline that's open, like Jason said. And hopefully, like you said, Aaron, we'll see some redemption and a change in him.
Very good. Very good. Well said. Jason, any thoughts on Omega and Crosshair?
No, I think that was said pretty beautifully. I really want to see where this goes, and can't wait for season 2. That's that really is what a season 1 finale should do, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it should do, and they definitely did a good job of that. We also had a lot of discussion between Hunter and Crosshair throughout this episode, and even the last episode too, Kamino, Return to Kamino, and we get to see their views on what's happened, and we're seeing 2 totally different views, where they were seeing Hunter's view of the Empire versus Crosshair's view of the Empire. We're seeing their view of their positions in the galaxy. They're seeing their views of their views of one another as a family, as a team, as brothers, and those varying differences. How did those conversations between Hunter and Crosshair hit you, Jason?
Yeah, it's interesting. Hunter's probably the character I connected with least in this season, and I think part of that is that he's the character who's kind of closest to the stand-in for the audience, which is a tricky thing to do if your starting point is a bunch of mutated super soldiers. But as a result, he was the one who felt a little fuzzy to me. Like he felt like he went very quickly to me, to Omega's protector, the one doing the right thing. So I would have liked to see more of an arc over the season in general there, to watch him kind of struggle with that a little bit more than he did. For me, it's it's Crosshair himself and then Omega. That's the relationship I key in on. Though, there are other bits of it too. Like I really like the real quick exchange with Tech and Crosshair when Tech is sort of coolly summing up what's wrong with Crosshair, who's kind of taken aback, and then Tech says something like, just because I explain you, I'm not doesn't mean I'm defending you. That's not it, but it's close enough. That was a fun little exchange and a reminder of, in any, as all of us who have, kind of friend groups or big families know, in any group of 4 or 5 people, that, multiply that number by the number of relationships and histories and things like that. So that was a nice moment that I enjoyed seeing.
Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. So, of course, last but not least in this episode, we have our heroes flying off into the sunset on the Marauder, and we have Crosshair, who stayed behind and to await his empire and hopefully not turning into, Nolan from Castaway. Is it me, or did y'all notice they left him with nothing? Hunter walked onto the ship with Crosshair's backpack and his sniper rifle, and that was it. I mean, what was up with that? And they went their separate ways. Now, the thing I want to end our review of this episode with is the very end scene. We have the Imperial shuttle come flying into this mountain facility. It lands. Clone commandos come off with Nalase, who is greeted by an Imperial scientist who is dressed vaguely familiar if you've watched The Mandalorian, and welcomes them to the facility and says, "We have great things planned for you." And that's pretty much how the episode ended. How did that ending strike you, David?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. The first thing I thought about was The Mandalorian, right? She's dressed very much like Dr. Pershing, and even at StarWars.com in the episode guide, it references that she's dressed like others that we've seen before. And so obviously the first thing I think about is what they've been developing in The Mandalorian and what we saw in The Rise of Skywalker, in December of 2019, which is this whole kind of overarching or underarching or secret kind of story and plan to try to help, provide a clone ultimately to house, as a backup plan if something ever happens to the Emperor. So that's, the immediate feel I had. And that'll be a storyline again going through this, I believe through season 2. But I liked it. I liked that as just like a little ending. And just like, Jason said, what do you want a season 1 finale to do to get you thinking about season 2? And I am thinking about that from a number of different angles. And this is one of them, and that I would like to know more about.
Very good. Very good. Jason, how did you feel about that ending there?
I thought it was fun. I mean, I think I'd been unwary on Twitter to come across someone who was super excited that it was a pull from a Tim Zahn book, etc. So, which, I was like, oh, that's neat. But, I think there are many people who are a lot more excited about that than I was. But what I do like about it is it's what we've been discussing is, the connections there, moving back, forward, moving into Legends, moving out. But it's one of the fun things back in the day as a Star Wars author was kind of, playing a little role and planting little seeds. Whether, occasionally it was a connection that occurred to me, but more often it was being asked to, put in a little reference here or make something match up a little differently than you had in mind. Sometimes to things that you weren't familiar with. And that would be really fun. Like, being handed like a little packet of seeds and told to plant it over there. And then, a season later, seeing what comes up. so that was pretty neat. And so, yeah, I smiled at those connections and wondered about them a little bit, and I'm curious to see how that pays off.
I can understand that. It is, I liked the ending. It definitely, as we mentioned, as we talked about earlier, this definitely leaves you wanting for season 2 to see what's happening. I really want to see what's happening at this facility, especially once I went through the episode guide and realized that they're actually saying it was Wayland from the Wayland facility from Zahn's books. So yeah, it's interesting. It was an interesting ending to the episode, and in and of itself, its own cliffhanger. So really good. So all right. So with that, we are just going to take one more quick break. We are going to come back with our final thoughts. We're going to grade out the episode, the finale, and we are going to wrap it up. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Aaron and David here with guest Jason Fry. We have just discussed the season finale of Star Wars The Bad Batch, episodes Return to Kamino and Kamino Lost. So we are going to go into our final thoughts. Jason, as our guest, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your final thoughts on this episode?
Oh, I was really afraid you were going to ask me to give it a grade, and I was going to.
That's coming.
Oh, I'm not going to do that. I refuse.
Okay, no problem.
No, but I think I have a good reason why I don't want to give it a grade, because, being a super old fan, as well as just super old period, I remember, my childhood being, a movie every 3 years, and, a novel very occasionally, and one monthly comic book. And, it's so exciting to have a steady diet of Star Wars. And, I go, like everyone out there, I have, stories that are my favorites, and stories I like, and stories that don't quite work for me, and a couple of stories I really don't like. And that's okay. That leads to good discussions. But, every Star Wars tale that comes down the pike, my starting point is the same. Like, I'm leaning forward and super eager and want to be entertained and hope I'm going to love it. And so, Bad Batch, like so many things, because we've been really blessed here, is just a wonderful addition to all that. And I can't wait for more.
Well said. Well said. David, what about your final thoughts on the season 1 finale?
Yeah. I did. I really enjoyed this season finale. I have said it before that I really do see it as 3 parts. Grade wise, I thought of War Mantle as an A+. I thought of Return to Kamino as an A, and this an A-. I think maybe during this review, people might have thought I was really down on it. I'm not. In fact, like Jason said, it's, I think about how much hard work it takes to do anything well. Athletically, academically, I can't even imagine what Jason and these other authors do to put books together. It's a staggering amount of work. And so, in my show notes here, I say, look, I wish they would have finished up like they did with Loki, meaning at the very last episode of Loki, they went badoom, they put that stamp at the end and said, hey, Loki will return for season 2. I would love for them to have done this here, but overall, all that being said, I'm looking at my notes here. The animation, music, voice acting, it's incredible. It's unreal. And every time Joel Aaron would kind of post something on Twitter, he's one of the persons who's worked on all these, along with the Clone Wars. Every time he says he was so excited for all of us to see the next episode, and it was true, right? I mean, just the animation. He goes, "Wait till you see this. Wait till you see it." Keith Kellogg, same thing. It's just incredible. And Jason referred to it at the beginning, like how they can animate water and the hair, like even when Omega's hair gets wet. All of that's tons of work, and I'm absolutely appreciative of it. I think I'm the same age as Jason, or really close. I feel the same way as him. I remember waiting 3 years. I was there, 3 years between Star Wars Empire and Return of the Jedi, and I was in the theater for all of them. And now to get this, with Star Wars Visions coming next month. Although at the end of this month, we'll see how they did that last episode of The Mandalorian. I'm going to be tuned into that and seeing how Mark Hamill and Filoni and all them did it. So absolutely agree with Jason that it's just such a privilege and a blessing to be alive now to see all this content. And just a few little final thoughts, kind of looking ahead at season 2. I'm curious to see if there's something more that is special about Omega beyond her having that pure DNA, like Boba Fett. That leads me into, and I was curious if they would do it this year, if they would have her meet Boba Fett. I thought in, let's see, what is it? Return to Kamino, when Aaron, you were mentioning hunters walking through the aisles, the hallways of Tipoca City, and we see a bunch of small clones that Daniel Logan used to voice, and play. I thought, wait, are they going to lead into Omega meeting Boba Fett? But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they'll interact next season. And the other thing that I'm curious if they'll do this or not, again, I don't know. I could be excited. And like we said, I'm excited for season 2, and they've left me wanting more, is will we see batches or large numbers of clones battling the conscripted stormtroopers? That would be very interesting to me and really cool to see. So overall, really enjoyed this season. Again, very thankful to Jason for his time to be with us on May the 4th and here at the end, and all the insights that he has as a writer. I just love it. I'm so thankful you were on, Jason, because you give these perspectives that, again, I learned from listening to you, and how to write and what do you do with characters and potholes and pitfalls that can happen, or payoffs. And so I just want to make sure in my review here, I just want to make sure to thank you again for all your time.
Oh, right back at you both. I have learned far more than I brought to the table, so I'm very appreciative. Thank you both.
Oh, you're welcome. We appreciate you coming on. Just for my final thoughts, I love the finale. I thought it was great. It was what we needed just to keep us wanting more. And it's awesome knowing that we are getting it. I just hope it comes sooner rather than later, because I don't, with all the Star Wars we've been getting, I'm impatient now. I want more. Give me more. So yeah, it was great. I loved it. Breaking them down individually, for Kamino, Return to Kamino, that was definitely and I would actually given that an A+, with Kamino Lost getting an A on my grades. Great episodes, so a lot of fun. So perfect. And that wraps everything up there. Jason, we like you said, we appreciate you coming on with us. If somebody wants to see what you're up to nowadays and see what you have to say, where would they go about doing that?
I've been writing on a Substack, which has been a lot of fun. So look for Jason Fry's Substack. I'm over there with thoughts on Star Wars and other things when I have them, and I'm on Twitter as Jason C. Fry.
Excellent. And I know we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Battles That Changed the Galaxy coming out October 5th. I just saw the pre-order up on Amazon. Anything you could tell us about what to expect from that?
Yeah, a terrific, not just me, terrific bunch of co-writers here, Cole Horton, Chris Hemshaw, and Amy Radcliffe, and we just had a blast exploring some iconic battles of the Star Wars galaxy and diving really deep into them and getting super geeky about them. And I've written some other books I've been lucky to write some other books with some wonderful authors in collaboration before, but I've never had so much fun doing that as with this group of people and our wonderful DK editors. So come October, I hope people will pick up this book and enjoy it as much as we enjoyed writing it.
Perfect. Well, I know I'm actually already been looking at the pre-order. I'm actually going to be picking that up on my pre-order so I can get it as soon as possible. It looks fabulous. Can't wait to get my hands on it. We'll have links in the show notes to your Substack, as well as a link to the Amazon pre-order for Battles of that Changed the Galaxy. So perfect. Thank you again, Jason, for joining us. We do greatly appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Thank you so much. It was a blast.
Excellent. Thank you. You're always welcome anytime. Well said. All right. So, David, if somebody wants to talk Star Wars with you, how would they go about getting that done?
Yeah, there's 3 different ways. The best way is probably Twitter, and I've always had the same address there. It's at David_Modders. Last name is Modders. So there's that. There is our email, and that is david@starwarsreactions.com. And then on Instagram, if you just look up David Modders, I'm there. And I keep promising to add more pictures. I really need to do that. So please forgive me. I'll get more on there. All of them are Star Wars, basically, except for one. So I'm going to keep it going. It's going to be just a Star Wars Instagram page.
There you go. Perfect. Of course, if you do want to talk Star Wars with me, best way to do that is via Twitter at TAHarris121079. Of course, email me, Aaron, at StarWarsReactions.com if you want to. So those are the best way there. Now, of course, we also want to hear from you on your thoughts of the season finale as well. So you don't want to miss out sharing your thoughts and opinions and even grade the episode. You can hit us up on Facebook and Instagram. It's SW Reactions. Or you can hit us up on Twitter at SW Reactions Pod, or show at StarWarsReactions.com for an email as well. So any of those would be great to hit us up on and let us know what you think. So yeah, it was great. So one more thing we do need to get to today before we completely close out the show, and that is, of course, our newest segment, the Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week. Are you ready for this one, David?
I'm already apologizing to our listeners. This is so bad. It's a groaner, people.
Here we go. David, how does Wicket get around Endor?
I don't know. How does Wicket get around Endor?
Ewoks. Waka, waka, waka.
We crack ourselves up with these.
These are so bad. The best part is I just got like 3 more from a video I just saw of Pedro Pascal doing Mandalorian jokes.
All right, people.
They are just as bad. So we got we have plenty of these to last for a long time. So Ewoks. All right, David. This has been great. It's been a lot of fun recording this show with you. Of course, we want to thank Jason Fry for joining us for this review. It was awesome having him back on and bookending the season with him. And we started it with him at the beginning with the review of the premiere and ending the season with him. That was, to me, a perfect bookend, and I'm so glad we did this. So thank you, Jason, again for joining us. David, buddy, it's been awesome.
Absolutely, buddy. And I just want to let people know Psychology Corners are coming. We didn't do one the last time Jason was on, and this time either. We wanted most of the time to be for him and the reviews. So more are coming.
Yes, absolutely. There's more coming. And we got a lot of great stuff planned too. We're going to, like I said, we'll review the Mandalorian behind the scenes, the Disney Gallery coming up next for our next episode. We also will be doing some more, bringing back our profile series as well. I'm looking forward to that. That was a lot of fun to do. So there's a lot coming. So just stay tuned, and there's always Star Wars content to talk about, and we're going to do it. So we want to thank everybody again for joining us for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for all your support and for all that y'all do. Y'all are awesome. We appreciate every single one of you, and we pray for y'all and wish y'all the best. So remember, this is your place for elegant discussions for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.